Hey everyone, happy Monday. Today we are in 5.8 and we are subtracting fractions, but today our fractions are going to be mixed numbers. So we're going to take a look at that and we're going to do our best to take what we already know about fractions or what we already know about subtracting and apply it all together today. So you had a math message today that dealt with art students using paint. They had 3 2/3 gallon of paint for the school play. They used 2 1/3. And the question is, how many gallons were left after they used this 2 1/3? So today we're looking at subtracting these fractions. And sometimes fractions are easy to do with mixed numbers when you're subtracting, and sometimes they're not that easy. So this particular question, it's a little bit easier because I have a bigger number in my whole numbers and I have a bigger number in my fractions. So I can just straight up subtract here. When I look at this, I can do 3 minus 2, which is 1, and I can do 2 minus 2/3 minus 1/3, which is 1/3. And my answer is I have 1 1/3 gallons of paint left. However, it's not always that easy. Sometimes our fractions are a smaller fraction, and I'm going to show you how to deal with that in just a minute. Okay, before I ask you to try something more difficult, let's just try something going off of what we were just looking at. So I came up with another problem for you. We're looking at 5 2/4 minus 3 1/4. Again, if I have both my whole numbers higher on this side and my fractions are higher than this side, then it's just easy peasy subtraction. So go ahead and try that. And I can do 5 minus 3, which is 2, and 2/4 minus 1/4, which is 1/4. And my answer is 2 1/4. Okay. So if you can handle that part, you're going to do pretty well. Let's continue to see what else you might come up with today that might be a struggle. Okay, let's say that you have a problem where there are 5 pounds of potatoes and your recipe calls for 1 3/4 pounds. Okay. So you're looking at a problem where you want to know how many pounds of potatoes you have left after your recipe. So you bought 5 pounds of potatoes, you're using 1 3/4, but as you can see, you don't really have a fraction to take from. And if I were to write a fraction there, it'd be 0/4. Well, 0 minus 3, I can't do. That's where I would have to borrow. So instead of 5, I'm going to look at this as 4 4/4. And the reason I did that is because 4 4/4 is the exact same thing as 5, but now my denominator is the same as over here, and I can actually subtract. So if I did 4 4/4 minus 1 3/4, I would get 3 1/4. So I have 3 1/4 potatoes left. I could always check my work by reversing and adding my answer to my problem to see if I get this one. So 1 1/4 plus 3/4 is 4/4. 3 plus 1 is 4. 4 4/4, that's a lot of 4s, equals 5. So I know in this case that my answer is correct. All right, let's try another one. Okay, let's try another problem where we have a little more difficulty in our actual fractions. So Kevin is a 4th grade student, and he is 4 7/12 feet tall. His dad is 6 1/12 feet tall. We want to know how much taller is Kevin's dad than Kevin. So here is our number model. We have 6 1/12 minus 4 7/12. And in this case, we have the bigger number in our whole numbers, which is great. But our fractions, 1/12 minus 7/12, I can't actually do. I would have to borrow. So what I'm going to show you today is how to make an improper fraction to do your subtracting. So if you haven't done changes to mixed numbers where you change them into improper fractions, this is something that you're going to want to practice a little bit, and I'm going to give you another question in just a second. But what you do is you multiply the denominator by the whole number. So 6 times 12. And if you don't know your multiplication, you're going to have to use some of your resources. But really, we need to know our facts. I say this how many times, right? 12 times 6 is 72. You add the top. Okay, so we multiplied the bottom. Now we're adding the top. So 72 plus 1 is 73. And I'm keeping that same denominator. So I see that 6 and 1/12 is the same exact thing as 73/12. And I know that because I could divide 73 by 12 and I would get 6 with a remainder of 1. And that's the exact same thing that we're saying there. Now I can do the same thing to my 4 and 7/12. I multiply the bottom, and 4 times 12 is 48, and I add the top, which is 7, okay? So I have 56/12. Now, that doesn't look so scary. That kind of looks like what you just did on Thursday or Friday. I guess most of you would have done it Thursday, with subtracting fractions. So we can do 73 minus 56. Okay, so 73 minus 56 is 17/12. And so his dad is 17/12 of a foot taller than him. Now, the same way that I can put mixed numbers into improper, I can also take improper and change them back into mixed numbers. So if I don't like that answer of 17/12, it is correct, but I can always change it. And all I have to do is say 12 goes into 17 one time, right? 1 times 12 is 12. So from 12 to 17, I have 5 left. And so my answer is 1 5/12 feet taller. Let's try another one because those are not easy. And if you're not used to switching from mixed fractions to improper, it can be a lot of steps to try and figure out. Okay, I have your next question for you. So we have 4 3/10 minus 2 9/10 equals r. When you're looking at this, your whole number on the left is higher than the one on the right. So we are good in that case. However, our fraction is smaller. So if this was a regular subtraction problem, we would have to borrow. Or with fractions, we can make it become improper. So if you're going to make this improper, same as before, we multiply on the bottom, add the top, and keep that denominator the same. So I know that I have tenths. 10 times 4 is 40. 40 plus 3 is 43 tenths. Okay. I'm going to subtract that from, multiply, add. 2 times 10 is 20, plus 9 is 29, so I have 29 tenths. And then I can subtract 43 minus 29, which is 14 tenths. Again, if I want to make that back into a mixed number, I look at how many times 10 goes into 14, which is 1 time. It leaves me with 4 left over, and I keep my denominator. Keeping your denominator is super important, okay? So my answer could be 1 4/10 or 14 tenths. Okay, let's try one more just to make sure that you guys have an idea, or at least I have an idea that you have no idea, because we want to make sure that you get the proper help you need today. So, final question. 4 2/5 minus 1 4/5. Looking at this, my fraction is smaller in the front, so I would have to borrow, or I can change to improper fractions, which is what I prefer you doing for right now. So, multiply, add, keep the denominator the same. 4 times 5 is 20. 20 plus 2 is 22. Multiply the bottom, add the top, keep the denominator. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 4 is 9. 22 minus 9 is 13. And 13 over 5 would be your answer. Or take 5 out of 13 two times with 3 remaining over